Saints fans and who-dats from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz. With your host, Bob Rose.
Happy Wednesday, New Orleans Saints fans, fans of the NFL, and fans of the Bayou Blitz everywhere. We want to thank you for having us into your homes and over your airwaves again on a Wednesday night, a springtime Wednesday night. NHL hockey is in full force, and we are 1 week closer to the NFL draft. I am Bob Rose. I am your co-host of the Bayou Blitz. Joining me, as always, is my partner, my good friend, and co-manager of the Antonio Brown Twitter account, Mr. Kyle Mosley. How are you tonight, Kyle?
Antonio Brown, let's throw in some Magic Johnson, Juju Schuster. Man, these guys are off the chain in sports, man. But look, drama is amongst us, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is, and it wasn't too long ago, New Orleans Saints fans, that we had a little bit of drama inside of our own locker rooms. None of us have missed that, I'm sure. This team, one of the things that is so easy to love about this team is how close knit they are, and it's just a fun group, and they seem to have a lot of fun with each other, and it makes sports and being a sports fan that much more enjoyable, I think.
Yeah. True, but it makes it a lot more saucier, like a good gumbo, right? And speaking of gumbo, we got a special guest with us, right?
Yes, we sure do. It is our pleasure. He was one of, actually, I think he was the first guest of the Bayou Blitz last year when we started our fun little show. And joining us again is the iconic, the incomparable Mike Detillier. Thank you for joining us so much, Mike. We appreciate you taking some time.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's always good to have you on, Mike. We got to take advantage of your great wealth and knowledge. I'm just going through this book, man. Oh, my goodness. The hours you took. Yeah, exactly. For those that don't know, Mike puts out a draft guide every year, and Kyle and I just got ours early this week, and we're going to give you guys links throughout the show on how to get your own. But in my opinion, and I know I'm not alone in feeling this way, it is the most complete and comprehensive draft guide I've ever laid eyes on. And I consider myself a football guru. If it's something to do with football, especially the NFL draft, I read it. But Mike, I absolutely love your coverage. And I know you do a lot of things, but this is what you do above and beyond anybody else, in my opinion.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'm going to have to hire you guys as my agent. But it's a lot of work involved with it, but listen, it's a year-round thing for me. Probably, I spend 350 days out of 365 working on it one way or another, and so it's a long process and everything else. But it's my opinion, because sometimes you see what some other people say, and that's not their opinion of that player. They sort of carbon copying somebody else's stuff. But I've been able to do this 34 years now, so it's a long time for me. I think I got a pretty good look at what I think can be an NFL player. And the thing doing this generically is, if I were doing it for a team and I knew exactly what they were looking for, it would look different because I would know what they exactly. So doing this generically, I'm giving it to you how I see that player in my eyes. But sometimes, and I learned this long ago, that, injuries certainly have a factor with a player, maturity. Listen, there ain't no book written at 21, 22 years old to tell you how to handle fortune and fame. So we see 3/4 of people who win the Powerball and the lottery are broke within 5 years. And most of them ain't 20, 21 years old.
Right.
Older people.
Right.
So no one tells you how or can explain to you at that age that money ain't always going to be there. And so, and your work ethic and everything else. But so much of it today is about fit. Excuse me. And a lot of times, because this ever-changing world of the NFL is you may get picked by a team and you're a good fit at that moment, and then they change coaches, front office people. Next thing you know, you're really not. And so you bounce around quite a bit until it finally sort of hits for you. And that's the key on draft day. I think most people, they sort of know or have an idea of who the top players are. The key is finding those players for your team. And I got told this years ago by Jim Finks when he was in New Orleans. And this is 87, I think, for me. And he made the comment to me that it's probably 1% to 2% of players in the NFL that no matter where they went, their production would be the same. The other 98% are influenced by coaching, scheme, fit. And that's always stayed with me. That's a long time ago, 1987. So, but that stayed consistent. That does have a part in it. And you gotta have a clear vision of what you're going to do with that player and how he's going to fit in what you do. I think a lot of times people fall in love with the athlete and they forget to ask the most important question: can he play? Bottom line, you can fall in love with the athlete, but he got to play. And sometimes I get caught up in the minutia of today about guys coming up draft boards, down draft boards, all this and that. They got people in their own organization that really are not sure of draft grades, even now, as close as it is to draft. Because I talk to a lot of scouts and front office people, and they'll tell you, even today, we're not exactly sure kind of how it all sort of fits with us, and we're still working on it. And so it's an everyday process for them and everyday process for me.
Well, for sure, and that's one of the most interesting things about your draft guide that I love reading is that, like you said, you break down every single player according to how you see them in a general way, but you also have a section in your guide where you break down every NFL team, their off-season moves this past off-season, and what you identify their current needs and suggestions for systems are. And that's why it was one of the reasons why I think it's one of the most comprehensive draft guides out there. Now, I want to, and we're going to pick your brain, obviously, about mostly New Orleans Saints related things tonight. But you told our listeners on this very show last year, and we were on the eve before the draft. You pulled a Babe Ruth and you called your shot. You said that the Saints would trade up in the first round, which they did so, of course. And you said that it would not be for a quarterback, specifically Lamar Jackson, like everybody said that it would be, and you identified a defensive player. Now, like I said, you called your shot. Coming right out of the gate, I want to come out firing on all cylinders. Do you see the Saints pulling off any kind of monumental move like that heading into this year's draft?
Well, I can read a racetrack sheet. All I know is just in recent years, Sean Payton traded back into round 1 to go after Mark Ingram. Mm-hmm. He traded up in round 1 to go after Brandon Cooks. He traded up in round 4 to go after David Onyemata. A couple of years ago, he trades up in the 3rd round to get Alvin Kamara. Last year, he traded up for Marcus Davenport. Now, if I'm at the track and I'm placing a bet, my bet is that they make maneuvers. I mean, the track record sort of tells you that they are not going to stand pat. That's not Sean's philosophy. He's always been an aggressive coach to try to bolster his roster. Not all the decisions have turned out to be right, but the one thing he's consistent with is that if he wants a player, he's going to do what he got to do to get him. And so, to answer your question, yes, I think the Saints are going to have a couple of things that they would like to do to get back into, say, rounds 3 and 4, and possibly even move up in round 2. I just think that that's something they see some players there that could help their team pretty quickly, and Sean's willing to trade picks next year for a pick this year. I mean, that's just the way he is, and I suspect that will happen again. Now, if they get back in round 1, that's a more difficult question of getting yourself back into the first round. Now, he's always said, it's not hard to do. It's a lot harder than sometimes you might think. Not getting into the back half is a lot easier than getting back into the first half of round 1. But I do think that they will be aggressive because they have been in the past. And there are some trends that I can see, almost like if you're going to place money in a stock, that would tell you that there are certain positions that are going to get pushed back in this draft class. They're probably going to have 10 to 11 defensive end, outside linebacker, interior defensive tackles drafted in round 1. Probably 10 to 11. If you throw in the 2 Devons, Devin White, Devin Bush, at linebacker, that brings you to 13. If you throw in the 4 quarterbacks, who I think will all go in the top 20, Kyler Murray would be the first pick, and then Drew Lock, Haskins, and then Daniel Jones. That gets you to 17. Now, the one area that's been consistent to move up in round 1, as you're putting those late grades on the board for NFL teams, offensive linemen. Every year it's consistent. That's been the one spot, almost year in, year out, that, because the man upstairs only made so many people that big, that talented, and you are protecting multi-million-dollar players.
Right.
At quarterback, running back, and basically your wide receiver. So let's say they have 5 to 6, which, would be somewhat an average year if you throw in tackles, guard, center. You throw in 6, that brings you to 23 with 32 picks in the first round. So that tells you what you got here. You got 9 picks to go after a running back, a wide receiver, tight end, cornerback, safety. That tells me that that's going to be first-round pick grades for some teams on a player that will fall into round 2, and most likely in the secondary and at wide receiver. That's where I think the chess moves are going to be made to try to get one of those players, especially in the early part of the second round. And once you see that trend go, just like linemen, the trend will go wide receiver, cornerback, safety. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of shelters out. I do think there'll be 2 tight ends picked in round 1, and T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant. I think both Iowa kids go in round 1. And T.J. could go very high in round 1. He could be a top 15, 16 player. I think Metcalf goes in round 1 at receiver. I really like N'Keal Harry from Arizona State. I think if he were an SEC player, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. For most people, they didn't get to watch Arizona State play a lot.
Right.
Man, he's a one-man highlight film.
Yeah.
He really is. He's terrific as a wideout. Everybody else wants to kind of jump him. This guy's better than him. That guy's better than him. All I know is when I watch him play, man, the roll call is going to be real short. So you could have two wideouts going around one and two tight ends. And then certainly the secondary people, and I've told the agents for virtually every one of those top guys and some of the top guys in the secondary, you're going to be waiting for a phone call. I mean, the big man's going to kick you back, and you'll be in the 20s and 30s before you get a call. And that's just the way the draft is going to evolve. And so that may push somebody for farther down the draft class than you might think. And that would give you an opportunity to possibly move up in round two to grab a player that you really like, that you thought would go in round one. He's sitting in round two. And so let's make a maneuver to get him. There is no luxury position for the Saints. Just like there's no luxury position to any of the 31 NFL teams. Luxury died when free agency came in. You know, you can't stockpile at a spot. Players come and go. They want a chance to start. And so it opens up the Pandora box for the Saints if a guy who could play guard and tackle, a wide receiver. You got a 32-year-old Jared Cook at tight end. So if you draft another one, man, that wouldn't shock me one bit. And the other part, too, is you never have enough pass rushers. So it opens up a lot of different avenues because of what you did in free agency to clear up a lot of moves that had some obvious holes to it on this football team. So I think the Saints are going to be aggressive in trying to get, certain people. It's just Sean's makeup as a coach, and I think he's willing to deal. And the one team to watch is New England. Look how many trades have happened between the Saints and the Patriots.
Right.
And the Patriots have stockpiled picks for years. And they're willing to deal you, okay, I'll give you my third this year. You give me your second next year. Or give me your third and your fifth next year, and I'll give you my third this year. They're willing to do that. They've shown that tendency to do it too. So I do think that they do have a partner, so to speak, a tag team partner that they can make those type of deals with. And I think, again, if you look at the track record, it tells you this football team won't stand pat with just one pick in the top 4 rounds. So they're going to be aggressive to try to get back into that, say, top 125 players.
Mike, as far as the Saints, sometimes you hear the buzz on certain players that they are interested in or certain positions, right? I recall a couple of years ago when Coach Gailey told me, say, hey, look at Alvin Kamara. I heard the rumblings about this kid. Sean Payton really wants him. Has anything like that happened recently? Any buzz that you've heard through the grapevine?
The two guys that I've heard, actually, I wrote a little bit of this last week in part of my column. The two guys I know that they've spent a lot of extra time on. One has been Foster Morrow, the tight end from LSU. He's a complete tight end, but he's a really good blocker. Plays on special teams. He's caught 46 passes the last 2 years. Now, that's not eye-catching. But, and even Coach O, he's admitted we should have used him more as a receiver. He won't tell you, but I can. The reason they didn't put him in more was because they couldn't pass protect last year at times. They had difficulties keeping Joe Burrow upright. You got to keep either an extra back or a tight end in to help coming off the edges. And so they did it with Foster. But he's reliable, catches the ball well. And I always knew he was a good athlete. I didn't think he would test out that good. He tested tremendously well. And so he's worked with a track coach that has helped him, kind of lower his 40 time, and it helped him out in certain areas. And if you're a really good athlete, you can get a little bit better in there. And he's really worked at it. And they're intrigued with Foster because of his size. He's a good receiver. He's tremendous in the locker room. And I know they spent some extra time on Foster. The other one is David Sills from West Virginia, a big receiver. I remember, man, this is going back now. Lane Kiffin was the head coach at USC, and Coach Hill told me he was recruiting a kid, and they offered him, I think he was either 14 or 15 years old, a scholarship at quarterback. His name was David Sills. And I'm like, come on. He's like, no, I'm not kidding. He said, he's the real deal. He suffered an injury to his hand and knuckle, and never could throw the ball quite as good, and they moved him to wide receiver. He still had committed to USC, but once Sam Darnold saw, like, man, listen, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure out, man, he might be a tough guy to beat out at that quarterback spot. And so he ends up at West Virginia. And look at the last couple of years, he's put up some monster numbers there with teams rotating coverage to try to take him out of the game. And he's a big receiver, which Sean really likes. He likes big receivers. And a guy that can match up downfield, red zone, short yardage area. And he's a thickly built guy, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder. Same as Foster. Man, listen, they come into play. Ain't no half-stepping it with either one of those two guys. So I think those are two guys that I know that they've spent some time with. Now, here's the thing. Both of them are looked at as late third or early fourth round picks. You don't have a pick in the third and the fourth round. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're going to have to do some maneuvering here if you're gonna grab that player at that particular spot. The other guy is an offensive lineman, and that's Dalton Risner from Kansas State. And I don't know, I've got him ranked as a second-round pick. I think he's one of the guys that could move into round one. He's played center. He's worked at the guard spot, but really he's either been a center or a left tackle. And he's really more of a right tackle in the NFL. So he's a guy that can play across the board. Outstanding football player, technically sound, real sharp, knows how to use his arms and hands well. And in a lot of ways has some similarities to Ryan Ramczyk. And wow. I think probably early in his career he plays inside, either at center or guard in the NFL. But he could play tackle if he needed it. He's got the foot quickness and the body balance to play that spot. So those are three guys I've heard they've spent a little extra time on, I should say.
Now, Mike, you outlined, you mentioned Jared Cook, and you know when the Saints signed him, at least on paper anyway, that fills a huge hole at tight end. But you also brought up Moreau from LSU, and you have mentioned a couple of times how deep this tight end position is. Do you still think the Saints prioritize that position relatively high, even if they don't nab one with their second-round pick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they do. I know they've spent some time with Jay Sternberger. Crazy story about Jace is in the summertime, I meet up with Jimbo Fisher. And, you know, as soon as Jimbo opens his mouth, I mean, he's like me. You know where he's from. And he tell me, say, I got a player. I got a player, big guy. I got a player. I said, who is it? And, you know, I swear to you, I don't think he told me it was Chase. I think he said it was Jay instead of Jace. He said, Jay Sternberger, tight end. He said, Mike, he's really good, really good. I said, what can he do? He said, he can catch the ball. And he said, all I can tell you is ain't no linebacker or safety that's going to cover him. And, you know, Jimbo says some things. I pay attention. I've known him since when he was at LSU. And for him to kind of fawn a little bit about Sternberger sort of caught my eye a little bit because he's not one to kind of ramble about a player. And he did also bring up Trevion Williams to me, too. So he was 2 for 2 on that. But, he brought up, hey, man, listen, he's a big target guy, catches the ball well. But he said, man, what he can do is he can outrun people. He said, for a big man, he can just flat out run. And he says he knows how to set you up to get separation downfield. And he started at Kansas, went to junior college, ended up at A&M, and had a great year last year for A&M. So I do think that there's some interest there with Sternberger. They spent some time at the University of Alabama with Irv Smith Jr., who's a New Orleans guy. And so you can start. Josh Oliver's another player. I know they've done a little bit of extra homework on Josh, who's a little bit of a developmental guy. But man, he's talented. He's a big target guy who can run and catches the ball just so cleanly out front with his hands. Very similar to Jace. They catch it so cleanly, and then he's off to the races. He's one step, and then he's pretty fast. So I do think the tight end spot, when you look at this roster, what happens, and I don't want to sound morbid with this, and knock on wood, what happens if Cook has an injury?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You feel real confident about that spot?
Nope.
So I think that is an area where I think that they'll pay extra attention. I think that they like what Cook brings to the table, because even at 32 years old, God's blessed him. He can still flat out run.
Right.
And he's got some juice to him. I mean, he's a live wire, no insulation. He brings a lot of energy to the table. And so, but I do see, one thing with Sean, he's never about reinventing the wheel. Two tight ends, we saw the Patriots do this and have a lot of success with Gronkowski, and before the meltdown of Aaron Hernandez,
right,
of what they were able to do. They gave you a lot of problems that way. And this is just the start. And I wrote this a couple of years ago because I can see it in all these 7-on-7 drills. Most of these guys, they don't want to play defense. They're these 6'3" to 6'5" guys. Man, I want to play wide receiver or tight end. So now what you got is a glut of receivers. But where it's affected more than anything, tight end. Man, look all the tight ends coming out. Look at this draft class. And look what's down the future for tight end classes. Because you got them in numbers now where you never had it before. But they're different. Very few of them have been used as inline blockers. That's the one thing T.J. Hawkinson can do really well. He's a good blocker, inline blocker. Foster Moreau does a really good job. He's a good inline blocker. Most of these other guys, they flanked out as a receiver. So they're getting away, but, because I got people, we'll find the complete guy. Well, where are they? Have you watched college football? That's not what they do with tight ends anymore. They flank them out. And it can be taught, but you got to want to do it, because listen, blocking ain't easy. And it's not glamorous like catching the ball. But I do think that 7-on-7, the residual of what's happened there, has affected the pitch and catch game, giving you more options at receiver. And now it's really opened up the door at tight end. And what it's taken away is your outside linebacker defensive end people. You got a few of those, but it's not nearly the numbers that you had in years past. Because I think most of these young men today, I don't want to play wide receiver and tight end. Marcus Davenport, what he was playing in high school?
Tight end.
Wide receiver.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Josh Allen from Kentucky. He was a wide receiver up until late in his high school career. They became a pass rusher. So I still think the Saints will have a lot of interest at that tight end spot. I think it's an area where they'd like to bolster. I think offensive line is also another area, along with wide receiver. Again, it's a pretty thick year at both wide receiver and tight end. Offensive linemen, man, they come off of that fast. They come off the board quick. Everybody needs them and wants them. And so that may be where if you got to make a maneuver, that may be the spot you got to take a little hard look at.
Mike, what about the defensive tackles this year? Looks like they have some good linemen that are able to make some impact immediately with some teams. Who do you have your eye on?
I think I can tell you, I've done this 34 years. It's the most talented, with the most depth position I've ever done.
Wow.
At defensive tackle. I didn't go this far on defensive tackles before who I thought would go in the first, say, top 20 players. It's really thick at that spot. And that's where you're getting a lot of the pressure today because of the lack of the great edge rushers coming out, or top edge rushers coming out of college. But you can still find that guy in the middle that can really put a lot of pressure. And, I work with a bunch of former quarterbacks. They'll tell you the same thing. Man, I hate that pressure in the middle because you can't step up in the pocket.
Yeah.
So that's what makes someone like Quinnen Williams, who's my highest-rated player, such a good football player because he blows up the inside pocket, and he's just a dominating player. Christian Wilkins from Clemson, another guy who's a bigger player, but he's another guy that does the same thing. Ed Oliver from Houston, more of a speed quickness guy, but man, he is something to take a hold of. And then you got Dexter Lawrence, who's a huge space eater in the middle. Not a great pass rusher, but man, he ties up everything inside. And there would be another one, and that'd be Jeffrey Simmons from Mississippi State. The only issue is Jeffrey probably won't play this year because of the knee injury during the workouts.
Oh, yeah.
And Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame. He's an interesting guy to be around. Man, he'll talk about anything. You can tell he's from Louisiana. That's all I can tell you. Once you start talking to him, then he'll talk to you about anything, A to Z. So I know exactly where he's from. But then there's a lot of depth with that later in the draft with somebody like a Gerald Willis III, who went to Miami of Florida, and also at Dakar High School. Kalen Saunders from Western Illinois. Dalen Mack from Texas A&M, who was close to going to LSU and then decided to sign on with the Aggies. Daniel Wise, who's got some connections. His dad actually played for the Saints. His brother's now with the Patriots. Greg Gaines, another big space eater from Washington. Ed Alexander from LSU. I've heard a lot of good things about Ed. And then, you got other people like a DeMarcus Christmas from Florida State, Kingsley Kiki from Texas A&M, Christian Hill from Central Florida, Chris Slayton. I think that's a guy to watch. Man, I'm a big fan. I think he's one of the most underrated football players in this draft class, Chris Slayton from Syracuse. Man, he gives you everything he's got on every play. He's not a great pass rusher, but he's good. But, man, his ability to run the field and push the pocket. Now, saying all that, I'll just give you 18 names. Ain't a lot of years I can do that. And there's a host of other guys. So that player is really thick, and you are going to have depth in those spots into the third, fourth, fifth rounds that I've never seen at the defensive tackle position. And so it's a really good draft class at defensive tackle, the best I have ever done. And I did profiles this year on 30 defensive tackles.
Wow. Normally
it's in the 25 to 26 range. So that goes to show you. And I could have actually done it on a few more, but it just to show you that's where the thickness is in this draft class. That wide receiver, tight end.
Wow, it's pretty good.
Now, Mike, say the Saints are sitting at 62. They don't make a move up. Give us a couple of names that fans should probably hope that this team bypasses on. I don't want to use the word bust because these kids have never played a professional down yet. They're working hard for their professional dreams. But essentially, that's what the media ends up calling them. Is to spit out a couple of names where you kind of cringe and you say, either this kid is not going to be a good fit in New Orleans, or I don't like his work ethic. Whatever the case may be, what names should we hope that the Saints kind of look the other direction on?
Well, I talked a little bit already about Jay Sternberger from Texas A&M. The other player, too, is Hakeem Butler from Iowa State, who I think could get pushed down a bit into round two because of the run on offensive, defensive linemen. He put up big numbers at Iowa State, catches the ball well. He's got a huge wingspan that he can go up and make a catch over people. He's sneaky fast, and that you don't respect his speed. He could flat out run past you. He is a really, really good football player. Michael Jackson Sr., the quarterback from Miami of Florida. And that may not be an immediate need for you, but with the age to P-Rod and P.J. Williams on a one-year deal, you may want to look in that direction. I thought Michael had a really good season last year. He's a big, tall corner. He's got long arms. He tracks the ball well in flight. He's gotten better in run defense as an open field tackler. And so I like that part about him. I think he's a really good player. And somebody that I actually wrote about during the season, Deebo Samuel from South Carolina. Really good return man. He's not super fast, but he is super quick, very elusive, can take that short pass, and then he's off to the races. Move, double move, and then he's off. And, before he got hurt, 2 years ago, he was a guy that was putting up unbelievable numbers in the return game. So I think those are some of the names to kind of keep in mind as it gets closer here. The wild card for me would be Will Greer, the quarterback from West Virginia. I know that, the Saints went out there and worked out Will. He's a gunslinger. He's at the Manning camp. And, man, that ball coming out all kind of different ways. It's not straight over the top. Sometimes he'll sidearm it. Sometimes he'll sort of swing it from the shoulder and not over the top. But he's accurate, smart, tough guy. He got his butt kicked at West Virginia. He was holding on to the ball to the final seconds to get rid of it. And he hung in there. All I know is before he got caught with this performance enhancement drug, which I would tell him it didn't do him any good because, he ain't built like a bodybuilder for sure. One of them was 5-0 with him as a starter. And just look at his numbers. And he's the type of guy that's smart, he's tough, he understands his game at a really high level, and he loves the pitch and catch part of the game. And he's a little bit more mobile than people give him credit for. Now, he does have tendencies to groove a little bit hot, a little bit cold as a passer. But he's most of the time very accurate, and he's really sharp, and he doesn't think there's a place on the field he can't put a football. He's got a rifle that he can get it in a real tight spot out there, but sometimes it comes out sort of funky when he throws it. It's not your straight over it's not what you would teach somebody if you're a quarterback guru. You're not teaching him to do that, but he makes it work. And he's had to because of the fact that he felt a lot of pressure at West Virginia. And I'm talking about defensive pressure. But he's been a winner. Wherever he's been, he's won, and he's won big. And he, to me, would be a wild card pick for the Saints. A pick that, maybe not a lot of people are talking about. Sure like certain aspects of him. His leadership, his touch, his accuracy. And you don't need him for today. But, I think all of the sort of feeling, you can you can see the water rising with Drew Brees. That this potentially could be his final season with the Saints.
Right. What about Pat Schumer's son, Kyle Schumer, and you had another old NFLer, Mark Ripien's son.
Mark Ripien's, yeah.
What do you think about those two cats?
Well, with Shermer, he's a really smart kid. I mean, he grew up with that background, with his dad. He understands this game at a real high level. And he's got an above-average arm. He's not a guy that's known for his arm strength. But he's mechanically sound. He's very smart. He just doesn't have a rifle to get the ball in a tight spot. He's been a sort of a dink and dunk type guy. Now, listen, he wasn't surrounded with the greatest talent at Vanderbilt, but he's a pure tough pocket passer. As a late round pick guy, he's going to be a career backup in the NFL. But you can see where he gets it. You just wish maybe physically he had a little bit more to him as a player. With Brett Rippon, again, his uncle Mark was a really good player with the Redskins. Brett was a tremendous baseball player in high school. Not only a top quarterback, but he was a tremendous baseball player. Real smart guy. West Coast signal caller. Loves to dink and dunk it downfield. He's been battle tested. He's played a lot of football. He's nice touch on his throws. The longer the throw, the more inaccurate he is. And so that's the thing in watching Brett. The longer that throw is, he starts to trail off. So again, you're looking at probably a middle to late round pick in Brett Rippon and somebody that'll be sort of a career backup. If you're looking at somebody that I think has got some developmental skills and I really like, it's Jordan Tahuma from Ole Miss. Man, he's not a super big guy, and he doesn't have a super strong arm, but he's smart. He's a really good athlete. He throws a very good deep ball. He moves around the pocket well. He makes good decisions. He's a leader out on the field, and he picks it up like a sponge. He understands it very, very well. And I really like him. He went to the East-West Shrine game, and everybody was, wow. And he was smart. He's not that way. He's a competitor. And he's going to take the guy out. I think if you're looking at a middle-round type guy that could potentially be a starter in the NFL, I think you take a look at Jordan Tahuma from Ole Miss. I mean, he's that type of football player, and he'll do well in the NFL. And he's got what you're looking at. He's got the it factor, despite the fact he's not a 6'4" guy, and he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. But he is so good on the deeper throws. It's his touch and his ability to lead that receiver just right to hit on that throw. I like that. You don't see that a lot at the collegiate level. That's a strong point for Jordan.
Mike, I have a write-up on prospect everybody's talking about right now, Andy Isabella coming out tomorrow. And then two other smaller school guys who I really, really like, Jamal Davis from Akron and Wes Hills from Slippery Rock. I'd like to get your thoughts on those and maybe a few other names from the smaller schools that we should be paying attention to as the draft rolls forward.
Well, from a small college school, Nasir Adderley, and he's got some background. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see, he's got a cousin, in Herb Alley, who's one of the all-time greats. His dad played in Canada. And he's going to end up being a late first, early second round pick from Delaware. We've never had a first round pick defensive player from Delaware. Never.
Really? Wow.
And he's got it. You can see in him, he understands this game so well, and it's just natural to him. And no matter the competition, he steps up his play. He gets it. He really, really does. Sean Bunting, the cornerback from Central Michigan, is another player I really like. His cover skills, his ability to track the football quickly in flight. He makes a quick play on it. He's got it. Up to the races. Titus Howard, big offensive tackle from Alabama State. He's a little rough around the edges, and he may play right tackle first and then play left tackle. But, man, he's a big man who can move his feet. He's learning how to use his arms and hands better, playing on balance more. And he could be a second-round pick for an NFL team. Jordan Brown, cover cornerback, South Dakota State, a really good football player. He's a ball hawk, wants the football, thinks his hands in flight, he makes a play on it real fast. And he comes up with a ton of plays, and that's what you're looking for, a guy that's a playmaker. Keelan Saunders from Western Illinois, really good athlete. More of a run stuffer than a guy that's known for his pass rush skills, but he pushes the inside pocket well. And sort of forklifts guys. He gets under their pads and sort of shoots them back into the lap of a quarterback, which they absolutely hate. But he's really good at it, and he's a terrific athlete. Again, he's a little bit rough around the edges as a technician, but overall, he's a really good prospect that you're spending a little bit of time on could really come through for you. John Kaminsky, who played defensive end, sort of outside linebacker, hybrid guy from the University of Charleston, came in there, was a quarterback wide receiver. He has grown out of that. He can rush the passer really well. He's more of a speed quickness guy, but he's really worked hard to physically get stronger in the upper body. And now, in talking to him, he's told me about all the time he has spent working on getting stronger in the lower body, because that's where you're going to build up that speed, by getting physically stronger in the lower body. So those are some of the names of small college guys, or maybe people you haven't heard a lot about, that you will come draft time. But very, very impressive. And one of the guys I left off was Andy Isabella, the wide receiver from Massachusetts. Speedster, great foot speed. Everybody's putting him in the slot. He could play in the slot, but he also could play out wide. And, man, he can flat out fly.
Yeah.
He's got great foot speed.
Yeah.
The ability to make a catch, make somebody miss, and he's off to the races. And so that's interesting with him. I'll tell you another guy, and it's sort of how coaches sort of look and kind of go in the looking glass at a player. And, one of the guys Sean has brought up has been Trace McSorley from Penn State.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean has brought up the fact that, I don't know about the quarterback, but he thinks he could be Julian Edelman, part 2. And the fact that he said it tells, because, a lot of times coaches don't give you the whole insights, but they sort of lead you down the path that he thought that McSorley could be that type of guy. And here's a guy who he ran a 4.57 40-yard dash. That sounds about right for him, but it's his quickness, his ability to make people miss in space. And playing quarterback, it's an instinct that you have to make that first guy miss. And he was a good runner.
Yeah.
And I think if he wants to, that would be a slot for him as a slot receiver. Certainly put up nice numbers at Penn State. He was erratic as a passer. So you can see that that's probably not going to be his forte. But Sean's not afraid to take a chance on a quarterback who can do a couple different things. We see it with Taysom Hill. If Trace McSorley kind of hangs around a little bit. Don't be surprised that Sean takes a shot at him because of his comments. And actually, I wrote it in my book. He does remind me a lot of Julian Edelman as an athlete. And I think him playing in that slot would be a natural for him.
Interesting. Let's talk about some Louisiana guys. Louisiana Tech's Jalen Ferguson, and you have him ranked number 5 as one of the top defensive ends in your draft predictions. Talk a little bit about Jalen and how do you see him fitting with the NFL team?
I think Jalen ends up going around. He had an issue I wish I had, and I did. He couldn't put on weight. I mean, no matter what he ate and how much he ate, he just couldn't put on any weight. And he goes to Louisiana Tech, and he's able to add some on. He went to West Louisiana. He was a good player there. Late in his recruiting process, he did have some SEC schools after him, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri. And LSU passed on him. And so he goes to Tech, and man, he has been a terror as a pass rusher. Now, he's become a better run defender throughout the years than he was early on. Because all he wanted to do was get up the field rush the quarterback. But he's learned how to set the edge better. He's physically gotten stronger. His closing speed is, again, that's an element where he needs to physically get stronger in the lower body. Similar to Marcus Davenport. That's the spot where if he turns into a really good player, he's going to credit that. But he's very instinctful, and he knows kind of where the quarterback is, and he spots it quickly, and then his foot speed to the quarterback is really quick. He makes that move, and he's got arms like a big condor. I mean, he's coming at you a lot of different ways. So, he got, I don't know how much the off-the-field stuff hurt him. To me, that's a minor deal in today's world. But he's an interesting player that, despite the fact that he broke Terrell Suggs' FBS record for quarterback sacks, he could be a more complete player at the NFL level than he was at Tech by physically getting stronger, especially from the waist down. I think that's the key to his success here. He's a good technician. He's sharp. He understands this game very well. He's got a lot of want to play NFL football, and he's talented. So in another draft class, he doesn't make it out of round one. But in this draft class, he could see himself falling into the second round. I think he's a really good football player. Again, there's some rough spots in his game that a good defensive line coach could work with and get it out. But I think the biggest part of his improvement is not so much his upper body strength, it's his lower body power, because that's where you're going to generate that extra speed out of the field. But he's an instinctive football player. He knows where to go, and he got that beat on that quarterback. Man, his GPS, ain't no interruption in it.
Do you think the Saints could take a chance on him?
That would be interesting because of the fact you've got a lot sort of already with what you did to get Davenport. Mm-hmm. If he fell that far, you have to seriously think about it because you never have enough pass rushers. Just never have enough of those type guys. And he'd be a guy that certainly, if he's in the bullpen for me. He's in the bullpen of the 2 or 3 players I would seriously consider. I think you can rush the quarterback, then you can make a quick impact in the NFL. You know, because either you got a pass rush or you don't. Ain't no cutting around it. Either it's quarterback. Either you got it or you don't. And so, man, Jalen would be interesting if he would fall that far in the second round to New Orleans. But he's a guy that they've done a lot of work on. Again, a Louisiana kid. And, you know, I know his brother Jazz a little bit too. You know, and Jazz a big receiver, man. It's like he's speaking to a defensive end. I mean, almost like they traded shots a little bit. Jazz is a filled out, and you know, he had some issues when he, you know, was a little bit unfocused. He got some, you know, sort of scrapes a little bit, but man, in Northwestern this year did a great job. He's such a big man catching the football. He's always had good hands. He's become a better route runner. And now he's learning how to use that size, almost like a basketball forward, going up for a rebound to go up because he's 6'4" legit, going up against a 5'10", 5'11" corner. Come on.
Right. Now, he played basketball a little bit, didn't
Cornell or Harvard or Yale.
But Jazz played basketball.
Say that again?
Jazz played some basketball, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a really good all-around athlete. Ran track, played basketball. Just it didn't work out at LSU. And then he goes to Northwestern last year, and watching him, I was like, wow. He became a much more focused player. And so he's got that ability to sort of jam that corner, and, you know, he's going to make the play. Man, can he jump? You know, he's got great leaping skills for a big man. He can get up in the air and make that catch. So he needs a little bit of work as a route runner. I think everybody understands that, because really he's only a one-year starter. But as a late-round pick guy, or middle to late-round pick guy, I'd love to have him on my football team. And the fact that I think he's a more mature guy today. You know, listen, we all mature at a different age. And it's come to him that, hey, I got to put a lot of work into this. And he's really started to put that extra work into being the best player he can be. And listen, they got some with Jalen and us.
Awesome.
Mike, I know who you had the Saints taking at 62 in your draft report. Well, first of all, before we go any further, tell our listeners how they can get this year's draft report from you.
They can go to saintsreport.com or MikeDetillier.com. We still have some left, and we'll get it out to them, and we send it out first class, and so it gets there in a day or two.
Yeah, real quick. It does.
Yeah, I was shocked at how quick I got mine, and I'm hanging out up here north of the Mason-Dixon line. I was highly impressed. It's mock draft time. I know, like I said, I know where you had or who you had the Saints taking at 62. Kind of curious to see, you didn't have mock any trades or anything like that. Tell our listeners who the Saints' first pick is going to be, and if they stay at 62 or if you think they move up.
This was even before Cook had announced officially he had signed, and I went with Jace Sternberger, the tight end from Texas A&M. Because, again, I kind of held it back as long as I could, but then it got to the point, man, I don't know what Cook was doing or his agent was doing, but it's like, okay, the meal's got to be fixed sometime. We're all getting hungry here. Finally, I went to it on the 20th, and I went with Sternberger, and I thought about it a lot. He gives you a big option at tight end, and even with Cook, he gives you another big frame receiver in the short intermediate part of the game in the red zone. And, you got a 32-year-old starting tight end. And now you got a young one. And, so I thought that was, even with Cook, I thought it was a good fit for him. at that point. I almost had Hakeem Butler from Iowa State, I'll be honest with you. I actually threw one away with Butler, going to Saints in round 2. But I went with Sternberger. I just love that matchup downfield with the tight end size-wise. And last year, he made 6 catches of 30 yards or more. Now, again, he wasn't playing Pac-12 or Big 12 football.
Right.
He's playing in the SEC.
Right.
And he was making those type catches as a one-year starter at A&M. And before some of the younger receivers came around late, man, if I'm playing A&M, I'm going with the football throwing it downfield. They're trying to get it to Chase. And he was making the catch. Chase was making it one catch after another. And I was impressed with that he could beat that coverage, and it's his setup ability. You can see he's gotten much better at it. And so I went with Sternberger.
Okay. Like I said, I was curious because the draft report got shipped out around the same time that Cook signed. So I was curious whether you had it completely finished or how long you were holding on to it while we were waiting for old Jared to make up his mind.
Well, I'd heard it from enough people that were in the know that he was going to sign. So it didn't change my mind on where I was going to go. Came down to Sternberger or Butler. It came down to those two guys for me. And, again, had I went to press the 19th, I would have had him with Butler. I changed my mind overnight and I went with Sternberger.
I know we're running a little bit over, but I meant to ask you this earlier this evening. How has Sean Payton's attitude or persona, especially towards the draft process and the war room, has it changed much over the years? And if so, what way?
I think he's paid a lot more attention. He told us this on the radio show. He's paid a lot more attention to having the right vision of a player, of how they would use it. Also, to a lot more time background-wise. And everybody does it to a certain extent, but I think they have spent a little bit extra time of the makeup of a player. How well he'll fit in the locker room. How well he'll fit communication-wise. His work ethic. And so I think that has sort of changed a little bit, sort of evolved with them. But I think the biggest thing is, and Sean's brought it up to us about, I want a clear vision of when I pick that player, how I'm going to use him. If it's on offense, defense, special teams, a real clear vision of it. Sometimes you can get caught up in the athleticism of a player. You get caught in the vortex of it, or fall in love with the athlete, and you start asking, why didn't he make more plays? What was happening here that he wasn't? And he's a great athlete, but why can't he play? And so I do think that that's something Jeff Ireland, I think, has been a big help in being that other voice that if there's a question mark, that he can go to Jeff, and I think he feels very comfortable that Jeff's going to give him the best opinion he can at that spot. Most head coaches know who the top 100, 110 players are. They know that first 3 rounds, maybe even dipping into the 4th. What Sean and other coaches tell you is, once it gets beyond that, I've got to rely on my scouts. I've got to rely on them to give me the best information you can. And don't go on the phone, text somebody in the media that, we should have picked so-and-so. Well, if you got something to say it now. And I think maybe in the past, there were certain elements that maybe they didn't totally agree but wouldn't say anything. I think today he's much more open about tell me what you think we should do and tell me about that player. I want to know because that regional scout has seen him a lot more than anybody else in that room. Sean's busy on the weekends. Mickey's busy on the weekends. Ireland's busy on the weekends. I mean, come on, playing NFL games. they involved. That regional scout is there to see that player that's basically smelled the grass on the same field that player has played on. And to talk to the coaches, talk to the trainers, their assistants, other players on that team. So you get a good background on that part. And I think he's become more cognizant to listen to that part about it. Because sometimes your gut instinct is, man, look, I remember that guy at the combine, he ran well or he lifted well. Okay, where's his production? Where's the production at? Why wasn't he more productive? I think he's paid a lot more attention to that in the last couple of years, to those sort of things. And you're not always going to hit, okay?
Sure.
Not every draft class is going to be 2017. You're going to have some shoo-shoos along the way. But I think to consistently bring in players every year, and Sean's brought this up, that I think the average in the NFL turnover is 16 to 19 new players on a roster every year. And you might say, oh, he ain't good enough to make our team. Oh, really? Really? He ain't good enough? Injuries happen. And so you got to understand that you're going to have a certain percentage of your roster that's going to change every year. Man, don't give me this stuff about, we don't have room. And you always got room at the end, so to speak. And so I think he pays a lot more attention to that. And also to the special teams. It sort of popped in my head because I think maybe in years past, that wasn't a big thing. But I think it is today. I think he's evolved that way on the special teams part, on how good that guy can be as a special teams performer. Not only playing a position, but how effective and how quickly he impact on special teams. That's why if you're a rookie or an undrafted free agent, and your best friend is that special teams coach. Because that's where they're going to see you and play quickly. So I think the two elements here. I think the special teams part of it he's paid a lot more attention to, and the other part is about the fit and having a clear vision and the background of that young man. I think they've spent a lot more time in that. Again, it's a hit and miss business. I mean, that's just the way it is. But they've spent a lot more time to not have as many misses as they've had in the past.
Good stuff, Mike.
Boy, definitely. I'll tell you what, I could pick your brain all night, but I know you are crazy busy all year round. But this year is obviously your busiest time of year. I want to thank you so much for taking some time out. You've been a terrific guest. You've been a good friend to us both too. Extremely helpful and informative. Would you mind telling our listeners one more time how they can find you and track down this year's draft report?
Sure. They can, again, go on to saintsreport.com, MikeDetillier.com. Guys, anytime y'all need me, you know how to get in touch with me. Always my pleasure to do it.
And Mike, you got to have me over to the Silver Slipper one time with you and Bob. Look, man, Mike, it's been great having you on, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be watching your tweets out there on draft night as well, and hopefully the Saints are going to be able to get some impact players for this coming season. That's Mike Detillier, guys, with us here on the Bayou Blitz. What's going on, Mike? And have a great, great night.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Thanks so much, guys. And listen, have a little bit of patience with me. The Saints only have one pick in the first 4 rounds, and Deuce McAllister is going to be, in Nashville making the announcement for the second round picking out. Man, I got to spend 6 hours with Bobby J. So somebody, hey, listen, I got to have a little sympathy for me. Yeah. I tell Bobby, hey, listen, you get all that time to talk now. Nobody can interrupt you because one thing with Deuce knows all. He's pretty upfront on those SEC players. He knows it. Yeah. And Deuce would help me, just sort of get through some of that because, man, listen, 6 hours on the air is a long time. So, but Zach told me, listen, I got your back. I was like, I hope so. This is going to be a long shot. Because, this is one of the first times in a long time not having at least 2 picks in the first 2 nights.
Right.
And so, we got to stretch that out pretty good. But God bless y'all guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
You have a good night. All right.
Thanks a lot.
And that's good stuff. Mike Detillier in his house.
The icon. I mean, truly, everybody, the average NFL fan knows the Mel Kipers and the Mike Mayocks, although it'll be weird not seeing him on the TV screen this year since he's in the Oakland Raiders front office now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I've followed Mike for years, years even before I started, doing these articles in the show, with you and John over at Canal Street. But even before that, as a fan of the New Orleans Saints, I started following, Mike Detillier a handful of years ago. And he really does. I mean, yes, he roots for the Saints. Yes, he's a big college football fan, specifically SEC and more specifically LSU. But he really works his tail off.
Mike has been doing this for so long.
He's
been doing it for
What's that?
Mike has been doing it for so long, right?
Yeah.
I remember just being a fan before I started Deucing Reggie.com and everything. I was one of those guys in the forum on SaintsReport.com, right? That's how we were getting information. Mike had the info. He had the what's up, So that was the good thing about Mike. And hold on one second. Looks like we got cut off there. Bob?
This conference is being recorded by the organizer.
Bob, sorry about that. We lost you.
That's okay.
I was saying that SaintsReport.com, that's how we got our info from Mike Detillier. And then it was the fan forums on NOLA.com, and then it was everybody had a blog. Everybody had a podcast. So
and I'll tell you, I mean, for as busy as he is, and he said he works 360 days a year. I think he was being a little modest. I think he works about 370 out of the 365 days of the year.
Yeah, let's look at this, Bob. I mean, look at your report, man. He has detailed information about each one of these guys, their backgrounds, where they come from, what their production was like, even high school information about the player.
Yep.
So that's not, and we're talking about this is like 100 and 200 pages, right? 207, 208, 209 pages. And Mike, and he breaks down what each team in the NFL needs as well. So, Mike does a very, very thorough job, and he knows these guys. And you notice how he was going back and forth between the players because that's just pure knowledge. And he's aware of what each of these players can do. All right, Bob, I know we're running a little bit long, but Saints fans, that's some good stuff. If you can grab a copy of Mike Detillier's Draft Report 2019, do so at MikeDetillier.com, as well as you can go to report.com. Any last words, anything on your mind, Mr. Rose?
Well, and I know you're the same as me. This time of year, I have a persistent 24/7 headache because I just have college prospects on the mind. I'm having a lot of fun writing these draft profiles with John Hendricks and the guys over at Canal Street Chronicles. But it's so much work, and it gives me so much more respect for what Mike does for a living. I put out, I think, 10 draft profile pieces so far, and I have five more in the hopper ready to go out, and probably churn out 5 to 7 more before the draft. That's 25 players if I'm lucky. And like you said, Mike has profiled 200 some odd players in this draft report and does so every year. I don't know how he does it. It just gives me more respect. And as we get closer to the draft, and I know I'm not the only one, I'm going crazy with these potential equations. The Saints could make a move for this player, or they might want to hold off on that player. Like we said earlier in the show, I mean, we throw the words draft bust around, or this guy's going to be a flop around. Like it's so easy for us. But remember too that these guys are kids. They're college kids. They're working towards not only a dream, most of their lifelong dreams, but a profession as well. So we have to, at the end of the day, they're human, and we have to respect that. Having said that, I mean, we're 2 weeks out from the draft. We have another exciting show next week before we give you guys the lowdown on what we're going to do on draft eve. But as far as what more I can add, there's no way I can follow, information like we just got from Mike. I had a lot of fun tonight. I hope our listeners had a lot of fun too.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm going to say this, and we didn't get a chance to ask him in detail about the wide receivers. Maybe that's something we can kind of pick his brain behind the scenes and give you guys his thoughts on next week. But all in all, I think when you look at this upcoming draft, the Saints have addressed some issues that they had, but there's still some depth issues that I think we still need to pay attention to. And I think there's some great talent out there. And if I would be a Saints fan, I would not be looking for the big names and the big splash guys, especially if there's a round 2, round 3 choices, if they get into the third round, So just kind of be patient there, Saints fans. There's going to be some very talented young men on that second, third day of the rounds. So just kind of be patient with the Saints, okay?
Oh, yeah, and like Mike said earlier, a Sean Payton draft is anything but boring. So these Saints fans thinking that they can take day one, the first round of the draft night off because the Saints don't have a pick. You might want to stay close to a TV in case that changes quickly. I agree with Mike. I don't know if they'll get back into the first round, but I do expect them to have either a higher second round pick or move into the third or early fourth before it's all said and done. But we know there's going to be movement. There's going to be excitement, and we're going to get excited about some of these players that they're going to bring in 2 weeks.
Exactly. Let's see here. Before we get off the air, and you tell everybody how they can be able to follow your draft reports as well, I have to say congratulations to 2 guys in the National Basketball Association who had great years and were champions, and now these guys are retiring. We talk about Dirk and Dwayne Wade. Tonight were their last nights, and it was possibly the last night we will see of Anthony Davis in the Pelicans uniform as well. But thank you guys for the careers that you had. Dwayne Wade, arguably, both of those guys are Hall of Fame basketball players. So
No doubt.
Congratulations to you guys there. And okay, and I'm just going to say this also. On this past weekend, the women's Final Four was much better than the men's. And we had a lot of Louisiana flavor there with Kalani Brown. I think she's from Salmon, and the Baylor. She's a star of the Baylor championship team. The young lady Jackson, who was the most outstanding player. She was former LSU graduate transfer. And she went over to Baylor and she picked up the win there. But more than that, man, my cousin Kim Boyle, she's going to be the head of the host committee for the Final Four that's going to be in New Orleans next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations to
and
them.
This is her second time being head of the committee. So they handed the baton to her. So, man, Bob, we may have some media coverage next year. If you're willing to do some pieces, we can possibly get in the door. So I just want to let you guys know that. That's some pretty interesting stuff. You know, these young ladies are doing very well. Tonight was the WNBA draft as well. All right. That's all I got to say about that. And Mr. Rose, tell everybody how they can follow you on the World Wide Web.
Well, it feels like I'm everywhere these days. But I can be followed individually on Facebook. Just look for Bob Rose. And individually on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is @BobbyR2613. And my articles are through the Canal Street Chronicles on Facebook, Canal Street Chronicles, or Twitter @SaintCSC. I've turned out, I think, like I said a little bit ago, I think I've done like 10 different draft profiles. I'm trying to hit players who I think are going to be available in the latter parts of the second round or even day 3 prospects. So I'm having fun. I'm having fun. I'm getting the family a little bit upset with me because, as they say, do you do anything else but watch football this time of year? And the answer, unfortunately, for them is no. But I have a piece on Andy Isabella coming out tomorrow, and a couple smaller school guys coming up in the next few days. So look me up. Shoot me a message or a follow. If you don't already, it is your support is so much loved and so appreciated. And having said that, I know I speak for Kyle too. We have so much appreciation for you guys that are supporting our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. We try to mainstream everything that we do through the Saints News Network with Kyle and through my work at Canal Street Chronicles. We try to mainstream everything through that group, in addition to all the other terrific Saints groups out there. But if you aren't already a member of the Bayou Blitz page, please send us a join request or encourage a family member or a friend to do so if you think they'd like our work. We love the support. We love the interaction. So thank you all for that. It's so appreciated.
Definitely. And guys, you can be able to follow the Saints News Network at saintsnewsnetwork.com, where Barry Hurstis and I think we got a couple of other guys that may be writing pretty soon. We'll focus on a lot of the Saints profiles. Barry has popped out a few here and there. And also, don't forget to also follow him at the Big Easy magazine as well. He's been doing some pieces over there, as well as you, right, Bob?
I haven't for a while.
Okay.
I haven't for a while, but yeah, I'm still very much in the loop with them. As some of you know, I had some difficulties a month or so back, and have just recently gotten back into the groove of things. I blame Roger Goodell, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, I mean, it probably after the draft, when things settle down, football wise a little bit more, and we're back on an even keel. I'll probably be working with some wonderful folks over at Big Easy Magazine too. But yeah, definitely give them a follow as well. Barry puts out some great pieces for them, and they're a bunch of great people over there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's about it, guys. Don't forget you can be able to listen to the broadcast tonight as well as past broadcasts on saintspodcast.com, and as well as you can go to Spreaker.com, and if you have the Spreaker app, or you can go to iHeartRadio as well as Stitcher and TuneIn. Yeah. So we are canvassing the web, and I thank you for your support over the years. This is Kyle T. Mosley of the Saints News Network with Mr. Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz, as well as the Canal Street Chronicles. Tell Mr. Hendricks and those boys I say hello, and we will go from there, and we'll see you guys same time next week on the Saints News Channel. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.